Have you ever heard of a fridge shaker recipe? The idea is that you metaphorically shake your fridge for all the leftovers and miscellaneous ingredients that wouldn't make a meal on their own, but could make something if combined together. Well, Angel Beats feels like an idea bucket shaker kind of show. I'd like to thank my wonderful patrons Data52 and Tyler Bennett, as well as Fish Eyes and Kakashi Hatake for suggesting Angel Beats for Red Hot Go. If there is a show, game or movie you would like to hear my first impressions on, please let me know in the comments. As is often the case, I went into Angel Beats completely blind, and as such the first scene was rather incomprehensible. On paper, a scene where an amnesiac wakes up to find a schoolgirl with a sniper rifle aimed at another schoolgirl would be inherently intriguing, but instead I found myself struggling to keep up with all the spoken exposition that amounted to nothing. The protagonist, Yuzuru, asks about the gun and gets brushed off so that the schoolgirl, Yuri, can talk about her club, how she doesn't like the name and that the protagonist should help come up with a new one. The argument could be made that the opening should be confusing to put us in the mindset of the protagonist, but given all the other issues with the opening scene, I'm not inclined to believe that this was intentional. What really sticks out to me is just how contrived the scene ending is. Yuzuru has already been told that he is dead and in the afterlife. And when he approaches the other schoolgirl and Angel Beats' antagonist, Angel, she tells him the same thing. Now, I don't think it's unreasonable for him to disbelieve Angel or to even ask for proof, but having him say, "Prove I can't die," is one of the most contrived lines I've ever heard. I would almost argue that he brought that stabbing on himself. The final nail in the coffin for the opening scene is that it doesn't adequately introduce the tone that the show is going to take. I felt a tonal whiplash going from the darkly lit, seriously toned first scene to the scene where Yuzuru gets sliced with a large axe by an angry delinquent. By the time said angry delinquent was flung out the window by a large log trap, I had definitely come to the conclusion that this was supposed to be a comedy. While I will admit that watching that delinquent get pummeled by logs over and over is actually pretty funny, the other aspects of the comedy leave a lot to be desired. Another aspect that left a lot to be desired was the exposition. Unfortunately, Angel Beats goes for the telling over showing approach, as it does when they introduce the dozen or so club members and rattle off their generic character traits. Then we find out that this school is populated by NPCs, I suppose so that Angel can lure in the newly dead with a familiar environment. I would argue here that learning about their lack of sentience for ourselves would have been better, but there's a problem. The NPCs are sentient. They have their own opinions and rebel against Angel and the school. Surely a race of artificially created students would bend to their creator's whim, never break any rules and lead by example. But then they couldn't do the generic rock concert. So why aren't the NPCs just other people? They can't be real people, or otherwise we'd have to feel bad about the main characters stealing from them in yet another contrived scene. Why does turning on a few fans make it rain meal tickets? Why do these NPCs need meal tickets in the first place? If they need to eat, how come they don't notice their meal tickets flying away? One of my positive notes on the show is Angel. She has this Terminator-like presence. Nothing the main characters do seems to faze her. If the main characters needed to constantly hide from her or risk being obliterated, that might have actually made for an interesting conflict and made her scenes more tense. But alas, she can't obliterate them unless they meet some very specific criteria, so it's only a game of cat and mouse if the cat doesn't actually want to eat the mouse. But the odd scene where they have to hold her off is pretty cool and shows her to be a threatening adversary. The only other element of the show worth bringing up is the flashbacks to the characters' deaths. We get 2 in the first 3 episodes, one for Yuri and one for Masumi. The one for Masumi was surprisingly solid. It was inspiring to see her find an outlet for her unpleasant home life and pursue it as a career. The idea that the thing she was trying to escape from ultimately doomed her was genuinely tragic. A+. Although I say surprisingly solid because Yuri's was first, and Yuri's backstory has the contrivance issue that the rest of the show suffers from. So her large home gets broken into while it's just her and her siblings at home. Okay, I'm with you so far. This burglary turns into a hostage situation, with Yuri being made to find valuables for the thieves to spare her siblings. Okay. She can't find any, and by the time the police arrive, all of her siblings have been murdered. That is the second dumbest thing that happens in these first 3 episodes. Like, if she hasn't found anything by the time you're ready to kill the first sibling, she isn't going to conjure anything after that. Why not hold all the kids hostage and demand cash from the parents, like most hostage takers would do? Why did the burglars think they had a better chance making demands of the child? At first, I thought it was just too soon to do character backstories, but after Masamir's was so good, I realized just how dumb Yuri's was. But that's not the dumbest thing that happens in the first 3 episodes. Oh no. The contrived nature of the writing peaks in episode 2, when the gang have to get to an underground factory where they manufacture their weapons. It's bad enough that every trap they encounter was just forgotten by one of the side characters in what I think was supposed to be a running gag, but it might not be because a running gag kinda has to be funny. Or that one of the traps was so specific to the Broody Girl that it would not have worked on anyone else, especially not Angel. But the crescendo happens when Yuzuru and Yuri make it to their underground factory, and they decide they need to blow it up to keep Angel from finding it. Fair enough, I'm with you so far. When the factory workers wonder how they'll make weapons and ammunition without the factory, Yuri says that they can just make them out of dirt. Now, please understand, she isn't being metaphorically encouraging here, like, you guys are such amazing engineers, you can make bullets out of dirt. She literally means that as long as you have a thorough understanding of how something is made and how it works, you can literally turn dirt into anything you want. That's a thing you can do in this world. This is literally the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my history of making Red Hot Go. They need to have Angel be there or there's no conflict. They need to have Angel make it to the factory or she's no longer a threat. They need to destroy the factory, but they can't have their protagonists worry about ammunition or weapons. Heavens no, that might make things engaging or tense. Let's just pull literal alchemy out of the story's butt, and that way we can have our cake made of dirt and eat it too. That was pretty much it for me. If a show is willing to pull alchemy out of nowhere to resolve a storyline, then how can I be confident that there will ever be any real conflict going forward? We have a cast of characters who are so unconcerned with death that they are already playing it for laughs, in a show that will gladly make things up as it goes along to ensure that there will never be any lasting consequences. Okay, Masami isn't around at the end of episode 3, but so what? She wasn't defeated or taken, she went out on her own terms and Angel seemingly had little to do with it. Believe it or not, I do actually like this show better than Dragon Ball, but that's not because it's better. When I had to write the script for Dragon Ball, I got about a page and a half and then had to dig deep to find the rest. This show is so incomprehensibly bad that I've already written 2.5 pages and there's still more I could talk about. I almost want to keep watching, just to see how much worse the writing quality can degrade before it collapses in on itself. Remember when I said that this show was an idea bucket shaker? There's so much going on here, so many character archetypes in the main clique and so many ideas being thrown at the wall that I can't help but wonder if the original writer just really wanted to write about an afterlife. But they also wanted to write about a high school, and a character in a band, and a Terminator-like villain, but they have to also be stoic and emotionless, and a main character who has to remember his past, and a resistance, and a heist, and a dungeon crawl, and a group of magic engineers. It's just a hodgepodge of scatterbrain ideas haphazardly stitched together with contrivance, obnoxious exposition, and log swing gags. As ridiculously written as this show is, I want to at least see what the next couple of episodes brings to the table. From ice cold to red hot, I give Angel Beats a rating of chili. If you want a better rating for the show, don't worry, you can just make one out of dirt. That's all for this episode of Red Hot Go. I'd like to thank my patrons: Orion Tran, Lars Espen, Data52, Jamman5, Lemon Shark, Pixcalibur, Alberto Cruz, Tyler Bennett, Tenka, Jeremy Pashik, Fireclaw, Soren, Christopher Wang, Will, Mario, Luke Stewart, Swiss Cage, Stage 4 Boss, Gerald, and John. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.